Today we're going to talk about warding properly. Now, warding is not just a matter of dropping wards because you have them, but about creating certain zones of vision that give you information about the enemy which allow you to make your next move more efficiently. I'm going to cover the large majority of warding spots for all roles and then some scenarios where certain wards are going to be needed. Now, let's start with the top lane blue side player. So right here, your warding spots are going to depend vastly on how your matchup is going. Now, if you have a lane in which you are pushing and constantly harassing, example, a Vladimir, a Lissandra, perhaps a Maokai in certain situations, or a Gnar, many other matchups if you're winning them really hard. Now, a offensive pink ward for you will be here in the enemy try. Now, this is a very aggressive ward and will more than likely be contested by the enemy top laner because he will have to put his defensive pink ward right there as well. So unless you're prepared to fight that ward and your top laner is and your jungler is really focusing on that side of the map, that's a bit of a risky ward because it means that you have to be constantly pressuring, and sometimes you might lose a couple trades and then have to push yourself back and lose control of that ward. So a normal spot would just be right here, but this ward allows you to safely push up to here and fall back if you see the enemy in the jungle. Like this one obviously is a lot better, but sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to maintain. One of my preferred ones is actually, instead of going for this ward or this one, you push up really hard. You push on the enemy really badly, so you push them into the tower, and then you move into the jungle, and then you place your pink ward right there on the enemy side, or you can place it at the double golems. Both camps are really effective places to ward and very, very annoying because what you want to do is create vision of the enemy jungler or anybody that wants to go top and gank you, because you want to be able to be really aggressive in the top lane and punish the other person, because if you're pushed up, that means that you have the power of teleporting first while the enemy does not. So these are the common pink wards, and for green wards as well though, when you're playing aggressively, you want to be using either greens in literally any part of the map. So either here, 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 at the red buff, or at the Wraith camp. Now, these aggressive three can only be placed if you're really pushing up. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to tell where the enemy is. I mean, you're not going to be able to get these wards without losing your lane. The important thing about these wards, especially the one that doubles, is that it will allow you to see if there's anybody ganking you through the lane. Now, the ward doesn't have perfect vision and cannot see all the way up here. So if you want, you can actually place it a little bit up here, so you can have full sight of the lane and the doubles, because you want to know who's going to be coming into the top side. Now, that does open you up to one scenario, which is a mid lane that can roam through this side and potentially gank you this way, but that's your jungler's job to cover that ward. So those are really good offensive wards. And then of course, if you're worried about getting ganked through lane as well, like the top laner is moving a little bit strange, you can always drop a ward right there in one of the 3 brushes, and that's always a good one. Now, remember that you only have 3 at a time, so with the trinket upgrade at level 9, it's pretty easy to get these. Now, let's cover the wards that you're going to have when you play defensively. So if you're pushed back right here, and your top laner is pushing you in, let's say you have a losing matchup, right? You're struggling a little bit, you're playing, I don't know, Aurelia versus Renekton. Now you're worried about getting tower dove. Well, the locations of ward that you want to have is either a pink back here, a pink in here, or a pink in here. Those are the 3 defensive wards that you want to see, because you want to see if there's anybody coming into lane as well, because you're not going to be at tower the entire game. You can eventually push up just a little bit, and you want to see if you're going to get ganked there. You want to know if you get tower dove. Now, this ward is not that effective, the one behind you, because people can hide in the brush, and there's not much time that goes by between ganking you from outside of that brush to being in that brush, so you could still die. So instead of going for that ward, I would recommend going for a green ward a little bit further out so that you can see what's going on. And if you're really being pushed back, the ones that I'd recommend would be getting rid of this one, getting rid of that one, and placing the one that blue buff, because now you know for a fact if you're going to get tired though, you have a ward covering your river and you have a ward covering the blue buff. The blue ward is a good one because it protects your blue buff as well as protecting any routes coming, any potential aggressors coming into the lane, and it allows your jungler to jungle here completely free. And with the green ward, he can safely, with all the mobility of the champions, let's be honest, he could probably hop over here and get a nice gank on top lane. So those are the really defensive wards that you want to have in the top side. Now, I'm just going to go quickly over it without explanation. If you're the top laner, enemy top laner, the orange one, then obviously you want to have almost mirrored green wards and pink wards as to what you had when you were playing really aggressive as blue side. So you can have pinks here, here, and here. Exact same locations. When you push up, you want to take over the enemy's possible locations. And if possible, you can go for one in here. It's a little bit longer, but if you can get this one, it's a great warding spot because this covers anybody going into the blue side jungle through this area, which is a really big area. A common area, I'd say, not a big area. And then your greens, well, you want to use your green wards is pretty much just in camps and choke points. So you put a green ward right here, and then you put a green ward right there in the choke. So this allows you to see what's coming into this area. Personally, I prefer the ward in here and not in the actual camp because it allows you to see if anybody just takes the route from base, goes this way, instead of going, if you put a ward at the camp, you might miss somebody taking this route. But if you put the ward here, then if he takes a left turn and doesn't appear on this other ward, then you have a pretty good idea that he's doing the wolf camp. Now let's go into the jungle covering the top side of the map. Let's move these guys back here. Right, so now you're the jungler. And you have to consider both top side and middle lane now because you're in the top side of the map. Common ward spots are going to be this entire banana brush right here. This is a really important brush because this starts getting control of the river. Now, a lot of common pink wards happen to be here, the island, and there, as well as back here. Now, you want to have your wards as far up as possible at all times until your towers start dropping. If you feel comfortable that the enemy is not going to be in this side of the map, in like up here in this top side, we're doing blue side by the way right now, then by all means go for that ward. But when you go for this ward, what that means is that you need to be on top of Wraith control or Raptor control, because when you ward, one of the most important things that you have to consider is the Raptor buff, because it will give away offensive warding to the enemy, which is really crucial because you want to maintain that as long as possible, especially the aggressive pink wards. So this is a very difficult ward to maintain, just like the top ward right here. That's a difficult ward to maintain. So only do this one if, for instance, you have a feeling that the enemy jungler is focusing the bottom side of the map, because now you can keep this one here and it will protect from mid lane going to the top side and getting a roam. And if the enemy jungler shows up here, then he's going to waste a little bit of time trying to clear that ward, and he more than likely won't be able to find it if you take full control of the Raptor camp. So controlling both Raptors, by the way, they spawn every 1 minute and 40 seconds. So these are some really common pink wards, and you should not pink for your top lane right here, to be honest, because your wards have to be used on this side of the map. He needs to be buying his own wards. Now, don't pink this one defensively yourself. This is a ward for the offensive jungler. Unless you're super far behind, don't pink right here. You want to be more aggressive with your vision, because by the time you see somebody here, it's already too late. They're already in your jungle. You want to see them when they're coming in so that you can react and have an easier time collapsing on them. As well as having the ward on this left side of the map. Let's add one right here. Now, what is the difference between all these wards? Well, very simple. The first one right here, this one, gives a little more leeway for you to create a gank through the brush. So if you have a champion with a hop, it's a really good place for a ward because you can just waltz in and then wait for your next movement ability and go into it again. But besides that, to be honest, it's not my perfect warding spot because it is restricting in vision and doesn't see all that much. I prefer to have the pink ward at the island brush or at the banana brush because they see the entire area and more than likely can just see what is happening, like who would be entering the brush. This would be a good ward if the enemy has champions like Lee Sin, like Jarvan, things that have a really easy time going through walls like that. Now there's a lot of champions like that, which is why I think that the popularity of this ward is rising, but I would still opt out for green wards to cover this area. Now we're going to go over the green wards area to prevent that so that you don't have to place your pink in here. Now always when you place a pink ward, by the way, place it all the way further back. Like let's say you're coming in through the jungle. Oh man. You're coming in through the jungle right here, and then you're about to drop a pink ward. You're this guy, you come in here, you're going to drop a pink. Don't place it up here. You place it all the way up as closest to your tower as possible, because what happens now is that no matter where you place it in that brush, the enemy, the ward is going to see full vision of the brush. So it really doesn't matter where it is placed. So you place it closest to your team, because when the enemy goes to clear it, now all of a sudden he has to be really overextended to get that ward instead of clearing it from a safe distance up here. Right? So you want to put him as closest to you as possible so that it becomes less appetizing to clear that ward and perhaps create yourself a good pick opportunity by collapsing on him doing so, because you know, if somebody's clearing that ward, it's a pretty quick dash to just jump over the wall and kill somebody. Now, touching upon the pink ward, the green wards that you can have, this is perhaps a little bit more important than the greens at this time. And of course, you can have the pink ward back here. That's a great pink ward, but that one, again, falls into the same category as this one. Perhaps a little bit tougher to clear, but you need to maintain control of the raptors, because if you do not, if the enemy smites raptors, which any intelligent enemy will, you will lose control of your pink wards, because it's only a matter of him moving about in the map and getting a little red alert on top of him telling you that, yeah, he's being spotted. So all these wards allow you to know where the enemy is going to be on your side of the map, which frees you up to be on that, which frees you up to move around safely and without being detected, which is ultimately what you want. And let's get rid of all these pink wards so we can talk about the greens. Okay, now common green wards are going to be obviously at every camp. Every camp is a good place to have wards on, and even though you place a green at raptors, you do not need to have full control of raptors to place a green there. The reason being is that raptor camps, a ward for spotting the enemy at raptors is worth it. You should be able to, with that information, make something happen on the other side of the map or collapse on him or do something like that, because not only now is he stuck doing raptors, now he's going to be there for a couple more seconds while killing the ward, which gives you a lot of information so you can know how low is he, has he shopped yet, does he have wards in his inventory, what is he doing with his build, you spotted the jungler. So it's huge to actually have a ward at raptors and kill him for that. And then not even kill him, just to detect him. So don't be afraid of placing a ward here. Now a nice green ward would be also up here, but again, this is commonly a pink ward location for enemies. So you need to be careful with that one. Either you clear it or you set up a bait. Now a good way to set up a bait for this, for instance, is you place a green red here and then you wait with somebody else right here with a pink of your own. So you know that this entire area is cleared. Let's say you have a pink there and a pink there. You know for sure that the enemy doesn't see you there. And perhaps you walked in earlier in the jungle and you saw that the enemy had a pink ward right there. So you place your green right on top of the pink. Now you're waiting patiently for the enemy jungler. And when the jungler shows up, what's he going to do? Well, he wants to clear that ward, right? He wants to get rid of the vision. So this is a prime time for the jungler and somebody else, let's say the mid lane, to just hide right here and then pounce on him while he's clearing the ward and get a nice kill. So now with the vision that you created, you set yourself up to get a nice kill. And once you kill him, you just take over the jungler and ward a bunch. So those are pretty good green locations. Now, of course, every pink location that you have can also be used to place green. So you just place, if you don't want to use a green on it, but you want to place a pink, if you don't want to put a pink on it, you can just put a green down. It works fine, but you need to remember that it only lasts 3 minutes and that you do not know if the enemy has that warded. So those are pretty good pink green location. Now, forgive me if I'm forgetting a lot of these. There's quite a few warding locations, so it's a long time. It's a long time since I've spoken about all of these. So then we have a green up here as well. This is a pretty good one. This is especially good for champions like Rengar. So what this allows you to do is you just place it over the ledges, and then you're able to see if anybody's waiting for you to get a pick once your mid laner is to push up. Now let's go into the mid lane, and we're going to talk about wards for the mid side. When we talk about wards into the blue side, we're also going to include the jungler because the jungler has to be responsible for pretty much warding all over the map. Now, mid lane, you got a couple pink locations, pretty common ones. It's usually either here, pink right there, and then same thing, island brush back here. Those are your 3 common pink locations. Now, mid lane usually has a pretty difficult time going in for deeper wards, unless you're going in for a play to kill somebody or the enemy mid lane is just not really doing anything to you. You have a difficult time going for super deep wards because, to be honest, you're probably better off either farming or roaming. Unless you're a super mobile champion that has a pretty easy time doing so, such as in Italy. But for now, those are going to be your 3 most common pink ward locations. And then what you want to do is use your greens to protect you from what your pinks don't see. So since you can only buy a pink at a time, let's say you pink your left side of the map, right here. You pink this. You pink that one right there, and then your jungler pinked here. What you're going to have to coordinate now is that your support pinks this one for you, and the support won't have a pink right here. So now you're pretty much covered in mid lane, but there's still areas that you can be ganked on. For instance, through this route, the enemy jungler can come around and gank you this way through the brush right here. So a good place for you to go green ward would be either up here, move up a little bit out, move out a little bit, and get a ward up here, a green ward, or put a green ward right there so you can see the river. So now you're fully covered in mid lane, with the exception of course, up here. I mean, there's still many ways to get around. So you place greens over the ledges, and perhaps a little bit in the river. Maybe a green ward right here would be a little bit more acceptable. And now you have full coverage of anybody coming into mid lane, and you're able to play mid lane in a 1v1 scenario and have your jungler help you, or your supporter, whoever, with relative ease, just because of how excellent the coverage is for you to play aggressively when tier 1 towers are still up. We're not going to touch about what happens after the tier 2 towers drop, but I guess we've already talked about the concept that your vision falls back depending on your tower ranges. These are your most common pink ward locations, and you probably shouldn't go for anything else. These are pretty much the basics, and what you need to do is be able to protect the wards. Now, let's say your top lane, your game plan is going to be focusing on the top side of the map. You don't want to be the one placing the pink ward here. You don't want to be the person doing this, because this ward is not going to help you focus on the top side of the map. Like, you're not going to use that ward by any means. You're going to assume that the enemy will want to take over the bottom side because you're focusing the top side. So you're going to want to move your own pink ward up here so that you're able to really focus and pressure the top side as well as the top side jungle. So your warding location has to indicate what your game plan is. You should always be able to look at your warding and think, what's my next move? What are we focusing on? And you shouldn't even have to ask that, because you just look at your wards and you already know, our next move is going to be focusing on this specific objective or this part of the map. Now for, oh man, we didn't cover the the jungle warding for the orange side, I guess red side. Alright, let's cover the orange jungle for the red side. My bad. So we got orange warding right here. So you're the orange jungler. Now the pink ward locations that you want to have for the orange jungler are going to be a pink red here. Same thing. It's literally mirrored, which is why I forgot to do so. These three locations. Now this one again, the top side, you don't want to have that one. You want to have your top laner focus on that one because it's too isolated to help you anywhere else. So get rid of that one. You have these two locations, which are pretty common for you, and then perhaps one up here. A really, really strong one for you is going to be this offensive pink red here, because it allows you to get full vision of anybody going into the blue side. Anytime somebody wants to come around through this area, you will see them with this pink ward, which is super useful. You don't want to go for a pink red here because you need to hide the pink in the brush, and what happens is that ward only sees the blue and barely sees any gromp. So the enemy jungler could easily take a route, could be right here, and you won't even see him before it's too late. So instead of placing a pink there, what you want to do is with your greens, have green wards right here. You ward the camps. And of course over the ledge. Over the ledge wards and covering river entrances. So those are common pink ward, green ward locations that are going to be really useful for you while maintaining your defensive pinks. So if you don't need this ward up here if you have these two wards, right? This ward is pretty redundant if you think about it, right? You have a ward here, a ward there, one in the river, and then, okay, let's move this pink a little bit further up. This green ward is completely redundant and you should not go for this. The reason being is that who could possibly bypass this ward? The only time that anybody could get by this ward would be if somebody takes a route, which would be insane, of going through lane into this, around this brush, into the ramp, and goes through top lane. That is a crazy route and you don't need to cover that. You don't need to think about the rowdy routes that people can go, especially when you have coverage like this, because ideally, the enemy doesn't know that you have coverage like this. You have the entrances covered, which is what you need to know. That's it. That's a really important topic, not being redundant with your wards and having wards that are going to be used. So like, for instance, you don't want to place a pink ward here and then a pink ward there. Like that doesn't help you. You already know that if there's somebody going to be coming through here, you're going to see if they choose to go into this upper side of the map. Like, you don't need to have one of these has to go. Either you get rid of this one or you get rid of that one. But both wards are seeing the same map movement. You don't need to see that. You can just use green wards for that. Now for the mid lane pinks, it's pretty much mirrored from the blue side mid lane. So you have a green, pink here, pink there, bam, bam, island, and just like the mid laner that could go for an aggressive one here, you can go for an aggressive one here, but don't experiment too much with that one. That one's more for the offensive junglers, and as a mid laner, you're gonna have a pretty hard time collapsing on that one unless you're like a LeBlanc or a Zed. So it's not really worth it. You just want to have enough wards so that you can play your mid lane as aggressive as you would like. And now let's cover the bottom lane. The bottom lane warding. This is going to just be talking about both AD carry, support, and jungle all at the same time. So if you're the blue side, you have quite a few warding locations to put. The most common pinks that you have, just like in top lane, if you're playing really aggressively, you can place a pink up here. This means that you're pushed up back here. Now, this ward could be potentially difficult to to maintain because the enemy jungler can just go ahead and clear it if the AD and support are willing to push up just a little bit. So I'd suggest instead of going for that one, you place a defensive pink back here, which is going to be super useful because that will let you know if there are going to be any wards so the enemy can set up flank plays with TP for you. So you put a pink behind you while you push up and are able to know, okay, is there anybody that's gonna TP behind us, right? You don't want a Lissandra teleporting behind you and double killing you while you're trying to push your lead. So instead of going for this offensive pink, you go for this one back here. If the lane is perfectly even, really common one at the tri spot, at the tri ward, make sure that you know, you don't get ganked from behind. It's a really safe ward. It's difficult to kill for the enemy because they have to commit to your side of the map to get that ward, and it's really easy to set up a lot of plays for it. Like the support goes here, the jungler can just wait patiently, try to get somebody trying to ward it or pink it. Pretty easy ward to get a play on. And then you also have the pink red here, common pink location. Again, the support can place that one, but I feel like the support is better off keeping his wards to the bottom side of the map. Then as for offensive green ward control from the bottom lane, then you're gonna have the three most common spots to ward from. You create a little bit of a trifecta of wards. So you put a green ward here, right behind, so you can see anybody going to the blue side, just like in the top side, just like in the blue side of the blue side of the map. You put a ward so that you can see anybody going to the wolf camp. Then you put another one back here. This one's a little bit better than the one like Gromp, just because it allows you to see anybody taking more varied routes. A common one is up here, but if you can get one further up, it's even better. Now keep in mind that this area is more than likely pinked. It's a common pink ward location. So if you put a green here, it's very likely that it will be spotted. But if you put a green back here, the pink ward won't spot it if you put it just right. And then, of course, you can put a green here or in the lane. Now, I prefer the one in the lane because a lot of champions like to gank through lane, such as a Vi, a Rengar, I don't know, a Hecarim, or if they have a Thresh, things like that. So how you place that ward is you need to watch out for the creep wave and know when the creeps are coming so that the ward does not get spotted. Now, what I mean by that and how you do that is you watch your own creep wave. Now, creep waves are mirrored, which means that wherever your creep wave is at is where the enemy's creep wave is at. So if your creeps are walking by and are in between the tier 2 and tier 1 towers, that means if you put the ward down, it's going to get spotted. So you wait and see until your creeps are out of the tier 2 and tier 1 tower in another location, and they'll probably be leaving base by that time. Then you drop the ward, and then you know nobody's going to be there to see it, and then that is going to be an excellent ward to get counter ganks off, especially if it goes unnoticed. And as for the offensive pinks, defensive greens, if you're green side, if you're blue side, man, these colors are really throwing me off. Well, you're just going to want to have greens in the river, pretty much. Just those are your common ones, while keeping a pink back here. These are the ones that are going to save your life. You put a green here, a green in river, and a green in the brush. Those are the ones that you're really going to be able to afford if you're losing bottom lane. You cannot push any further than that, so it's going to be up to you to make any vision plays happen with that little line of sight. It creates a nice little bubble for you, but besides that, going for anything else would be a little bit too risky. And as for the offensive wards from the red side, well, again, it's pretty damn mirrored for how it was for the blue side. So you can place a offensive pink back here. This pink back here would be the equivalent of the tri-brush ward for the blue side if you were pushing up. And a pink back here would be difficult to maintain as well, like just as before. And you can put a pink back here, but this is not really the best for the support. I think the support wards are better off being used in the brush bottom or in the river brush. And as for greens, Well, you want to ward the camps as well. Now, personally, I like the lane ward better than the doubles, and just a little bit better would be in the brush right here, as I put before. But keep in mind that that only sees doubles, and if the enemy jungler wants to take a route, which is going to be just hugging the bottom side, and he's aware of your ward, he just hugs the bottom wall. The doubles ward will not spot him, so you have a lesser chance of going for a counter gank. But you will see him if he chooses to go for a greedy route of doubles into ganking bottom lane. Then you have the offensive pink back here. That's a good one. That's a good spot if you're confident about being able to move into the red side of the jungle and be really aggressive about it. But after that, then you just want to place greens in the camps as before. Like green, green, green. Those are pretty good spots. And also a good place to put a pink ward is going to be to just move the pink here and put a green back there. Everybody expects a green here. Not many people expect the pink here, especially if you go and do it unnoticed. Remember that when you go into a ward, the enemy jungle, you don't want them to know where you're warding. This is super important. This applies to everything. Do not let them know where you're warding. So always use your sweeper in the crucial areas. So if you're the support right here and you want to ward into the enemy's jungle, you do not just randomly walk in and take his ward and start placing wards left, right, and center. You go in here and then you sweep it. You use your sweeper. You clear the wards and you wait a little bit. You wait for the vision to ward completely fade out, and then you go in and then you go ward safely, because now they don't know what you're doing. Because otherwise they could just see, oh, this guy just walked in with a pink ward in his inventory, walked out immediately. There's not a pink ward to try. I wonder where the ward is. Now the AD carry just goes in, hits the ward 5 times, gets free money, and you just wasted 100 gold. That's not what you want to do. Now, if you notice, all these wards are just used for actually being able to have knowledge of what the enemy is doing and allow you to play a little bit more aggressively. Because what you want to do is, claw your way into playing more and more aggressively, so you can chip at towers, chip at objectives, set up for objectives a little bit better. And speaking of objectives, now we're going to go about setting up for the dragon. Now, a lot of times, a very common thing that I'm seeing is people just like to drop a shitload of green wards around dragon. Like, they just drop so many wards around dragon. It becomes really annoying to try to clear the dragon. So I feel like by now it's become almost mandatory that if you're gonna do dragon, you need a pink ward, and you need a pink ward at the pit. You need to have a pink there to clear every single ward that gets dropped behind. And for the rest, I think the best option is going to be to have a pink up here, and then, so these two are really common places that fights happen in the dragon pit, because when you have a pink here, this now means that the enemy has almost no places to teleport inside the pit. So if you're doing dragon, he's going to have to teleport away from where you are. And if you have a pink up here, then his only locations are going to be either up here or down here. So whichever angle the enemy team is coming in, it's not going to be right up close to you, which is what you want, because usually top laners are really tanky, and you don't want them to be close to your team when the fight happens. You want them to be far away. So whether you're blue or green side, blue or red side, you want to have these two wards. These two are really good pink wards, and the greens are going to be, if you're blue side, you're going to want to put wards here, here, and there. So you want to see every angle that the enemy is going to come in, and the brushes as well. So you can see, okay, are they coming in through the top side? Are they trying to use the brush and the fog of war to catch us off guard? Keep these two wards up here, and now if the enemy wants to come in and contest the dragon, bam, get spotted, get spotted, get spotted, get spotted. You have full vision, and you can make your move, decide whether to turn, whether to finish, or anything else with all the knowledge that you need. If they're coming in through this side, same thing. You can see them going in through here. It's great. And if you are in the red side, again, you still want to have these two locations. These are two very good ward locations for setting up the dragon. And please constantly you need to clear the wards at the back of the dragon. If you have the pink ward, you need to have your ranged champions be clearing the wards that appear back here. because what use is a pink ward if you're not clearing them? By clearing that, what you want to do is create a situation where the enemy doesn't know what you're doing with the dragon, so they have no sight of you, and they have to think on their feet and say, do we want to engage right now when we don't have much vision? They could be rushing it. They could be rushing dragon. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And you force them into a hasty decision, and that is perfect for you because when you're in haste, it's a haste makes waste, as a saying. So you do that, and you're more than likely going to get a winning dragon fight. On top of the fact that if they're actually dropping all their wards back here, that means that they don't have any other wards on the other side of the map, which means that you have already a vision advantage when the fight breaks out. So if you're the red side, your greens are going to want to be here, here, right there, and I'm going to try it, and perhaps one up here. Now you have 4 to 5 people doing this dragon, so affording 7 wards should really not be a tall order for something that's happening about 15 minutes into the game. So again, all these wards will allow you to see what the enemy is planning around dragon, if they want to give it up or not. Now, if they're not going to do anything about dragon, don't warding that, but you should be able to telegraph that. That's a move that can be telegraphed, and that you can see, okay, are they giving up dragon or not, way in advance. So don't invest that heavily into the warding if they're just going to give up dragon and take a top tower insight. Well, now you use 5 wards that are not going to be useful for you for the next 5 minutes because they're already committed to the top side of the map. And another ward that you might want to have that is more common in solo queue than not is one back here, because the enemy likes to go for steal, so they just throw all their ultimates and abilities, and jungler hops over and tries to steal the dragon for you and suicide for it, or the enemy Graves tries to steal it. How many times have I lost an objective to a Graves? Anyways, these are all the wards that you're going to want to have for the dragon pit. Maybe not that many, but it's enough. Like, this is the one that you could get rid of. If they're committed to the top side, you can get rid of this one, you can get rid of that one, and now you only need these 5 wards now to do the dragon safely and know that nobody's going to collapse on you. But the most important two are going to be the pink for the island and the pink for this, or perhaps a pink in here. Those 3, if you can keep another pink as well here, if it's a really close thing, you know a fight's going to break out, maintaining these 3 pinks is going to be huge. And a lot of times the enemy, your own mid laner, could have a pink here, which is another word I think I forgot to mention. Pinks here allow your jungler or your support to get nice roam plays in, and those are extremely difficult for the enemy to clear, which is the best part about them. That's why people have them, because they see vision of anybody going to this side, and they become very, very difficult to clear. The one on this side more so than this one. Same goes for one up here. So I hope that video wasn't too convoluted. It was pretty long, I think, but it should give you a general idea as to how to prepare for objectives, how to ward during the laning phase, and just how to apply that into your own play. Just remember, like, if you're mid lane, if you're mid lane and you're like, oh, we're focusing the middle, the top, the bottom side of the map, like our jungler is constantly ganking bottom lane, you're not gonna be and say, I'm gonna ward back here. Look at my green control, guys. Like, what's that doing for you? You're never going into that side of the map. Like, that's useless warding. That's placing wards to have wards. Like, you're not gonna buy a Sightstone and support and be like, I warded our entire side, but we're playing super aggressive, and that makes no sense. So think about that, and let me know what you thought of the video, and if you have any further ideas. This is a topic that I've been meaning to cover for a while, but I've kind of struggled as to how to put it in words and how to explain it, and hopefully that was able to be understood. So thank you for watching.